Welcome to Journeys Through Sociology, a series of interviews with the Executive Committee of the International Sociological Association. I'm Lalebe Bohanyan, and our guest today is Dr. Yoshimichi Sato, who is joining us from Sendai, Japan. Dr. Sato is a distinguished professor at Tohoku University, where he is also the director of the Center for the Study of Social Stratification and Inequality. He earned his PhD from Tohoku University, and he is a former president of the Japanese Association for Mathematical Sociology, as well as a former president of the ISA's Research Committee on Rational Choice. Dr. Sato specializes in quantitative and mathematical sociology and has worked extensively with rational choice theory. Over the course of his career, he's done a wide range of research projects on issues relating to social stratification and social change. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Sato.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
So, Dr. Sato, before we really begin delving into your history as a sociologist, I'd like to begin by just getting a sense of some of the work that you're currently doing. So could you say a bit about whatever aspect of your work right now you're most excited about?
I'm now excited about solving puzzles in sociology in general. For example, I found no spatial correlation between wealth and crime rate in metropolitan Tokyo. In big cities in the United States, there's a correlation between them. I mean, the crime rate is lower in richer areas. However, we don't see such correlation in Tokyo. So I thought social capital, that is dense social networks among neighbors in poor areas, has prevented crime. So I collected some statistics to prove my prediction. And the data shows my prediction was empirically valid. So I was very excited about solving this kind of puzzle in sociology.
So, and is this, in terms of your work as a sociologist, are you usually drawn to these kinds of puzzles? So, for example, in this case, you're saying you were intrigued by the fact that there was a correlation between wealth and crime rates in the U.S. and not in Tokyo. So is it that kind of puzzle initially that interests you in a topic and that you pursue?
Oh, yes, because, we see some contradictions between theories, sociological theories, and empirical data. So we find some puzzle between them. So it's very exciting to fill the gap between the previous theories and empirical data.
So can you give us maybe an example of another kind of puzzle that you've approached as a sociologist? So one example is this correlation between crime rates and wealth. What would be another kind of sociological puzzle that you've worked on?
A colleague of mine, Toshio Yamagishi, a famous social psychologist, has found that the level of trust in strangers is higher in the United States compared to Japan. So that's a puzzle because many people thought Japan is a collective-oriented society, homogeneous, they trust each other. However, some empirical data have shown that Americans are more trustful than Japanese. So Toshio Yamagishi has conducted some social psychological experiments and surveys. But I thought we need more clearer theory to explain the difference. So I built up a game theoretic model to understand what kind of condition would facilitate the trust relation between strangers.
That's fascinating. Dr. Sato, I know that in your own case, you began your studies in mathematics before, shifting to sociology. And clearly, you bring your expertise in mathematics to sociology and to the way that you study social issues. So can you just maybe tell us a bit about what was it that drew you to sociology? What maybe were, three of the main reasons that you chose to become a sociologist?
First of all, as you pointed out, I wanted to become a mathematician when I was a high school student. So I entered a natural science program at college to study mathematics. But it turned out that I need genius talent to become an excellent mathematician. So maybe I tried to change my future career. Then at that time I was interested in inequality in general because I was born in a relatively poor area in metropolitan Tokyo. Of course, as I said, the crime rate was low there, but I was keen on the social inequality in a sense. And the third reason is that in general, more general, I was interested in the relationship between society and the individuals. So, of course, when I was a first-year student at college, I didn't know anything about sociology and social sciences. However, I found some puzzle between individuals and society. So society consists of individuals. However, society is more than the collective aggregation of individuals. So society controls the behavior of individuals, even though it consists of individuals. So this kind of interaction or relationship was quite puzzling to me. So I wanted to uncover the secret between the relationship between society and individuals. Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I mean, it sounds like those are kind of two issues that draw many people to sociology. One, the first that you brought up of inequality, and secondly, this way of trying to understand society beyond just an aggregation of individuals and the way that social relationships work.
Yeah.
Dr. Sato, as you said that you were raised in a poor neighborhood, and so you always had this kind of interest in inequality. What was it about sociology that you felt was a powerful way of understanding or addressing issues of inequality? How do you see sociology as being useful for that?
I would say there are two approaches in sociology to study inequality. One is, as I often do, conducting social surveys to collect empirical data and apply some statistical models to the data, especially to understand the relationship between among several factors which would create inequality, such as the social origin, education, and job career. The second tool approach to inequality is to build up some formal models using mathematical models dealing with interaction between people. And I'm quite interested in how inequality emerges among rather homogeneous population. For example, if you work with your friend doing something, then you see some bifurcation between the leader and the followers. Even though they are just, for example, if you look at, say, in some student activity, sports club, among college students, in the beginning, they are almost the same. But over time, you see some leader there and the followers. So I'm quite interested in how such inequality between homogeneous members would emerge. So I have built some computer simulation models to explain it.
So, and Dr. Sato, I mean, also another issue that I'd be interested to hear you speak on, which we've asked many of the ISA members to speak about, is the kinds of challenges that they've faced as sociologists. So, when you look back over your career, what would you identify as being some of the most significant challenges that you've faced?
I have three challenges. The two of them related to the nature of sociology, and the last one is particularly found in Japan. The first challenge is I'm not a native speaker of English. I'm living in Japan, so I usually study Japan in Japanese. but I often write papers, book chapters in English. Then I feel some discrepancy between my way of thinking in Japanese and my expression in English. So this is my guess is that this is because I'm deeply embedded in the Japanese society. However, I try to make general statements in sociology in English. However, when I do that, I feel I drop some subtle meaning or entities which are found in Japan. So this kind of discrepancy between my observation or my thinking in Japanese and my expression in English in sociology. So this is the first challenge. And the second challenge is also related to the first challenge. That is the comparative studies. So I've conducted social service, nationwide social service on social stratification and social mobility in Japan, Korea, and Taiwan in 2005. Of course, my colleagues in Taiwan and Korea helped me to understand their societies, but just analyzing statistical data, it would help me to understand the surface of the two societies, but I'm not a Korean, I'm not a Taiwanese, so I'm not deeply embedded in the two societies. So I feel some discrepancy, not discrepancy, but some difference between statistical analysis and the kind of reality in Taiwan and Korea. So this is the second challenge.
Can I ask you, are there ways that you try and address that challenge? So, you are working with mathematical models, and as you say, when you work with them in your own society, you bring a certain level of background knowledge and context that you don't have when you attempt to do the work in other places. So how do you address that tension or that difficulty?
I have two ways to solve that. The first way is I often go to Taiwan and Korea to feel the, smells or the sounds or eating some local food to become more localized or to try to be embedded in the two societies. And of course, the second solution is, of course, I need some colleagues, sociologists in the two societies, and we chat, we exchange ideas. Of course, hanging out with them is a good way to society. So I often drink beer or something with my friends there.
Yes. Yeah, I love that as a way of dealing with it. Yes, actually just socialize with other sociologists that are in other places.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Dr. Sato. So you were saying that these two issues, the issue of, first you spoke about language, right? And kind of the difficulty of doing research that is embedded in Japan, but writing for global audiences in English and the kind of tension there. And also the issue of undertaking comparative work on other parts of the world that you may not be familiar with. And as you said, those are two issues that many sociologists all over the world face. But you also said that you had one challenge that was specific to Japan.
That is, recently the Japanese have become very concerned about their privacy because a very strict law about privacy was implemented in the spring of 2005. And so this kind of
Can you tell us about that law, Dr. Sato, or can you just generally tell us what that law was about for viewers that won't know?
So now it's very difficult for example, the marketing companies get a list of residents or the Japanese to send out their questionnaires. So, sociological surveys also a kind of sending questionnaires or visiting people to ask questions. But at that time, the Japanese became more concerned about their privacy. So many of them didn't like being interviewed by interviewers dispatched by the university or sociologists. So naturally, it lowered response rates in general. So I don't know. I can't figure out good solution now, but sociologists in Japan should do something to improve the situation.
Is this a recent development, or has this historically been the case in Japan, that it's difficult to access this information and that people don't want their kind of privacy, that people have issues with privacy? Is this something ongoing, or is this intensified recently?
The phenomenon is observed recently, but we've seen a long-term declining trend in response rate. But as I said, the law implemented in 2005 made a big impact on response rate.
And do you find that your colleagues in other nations are facing some similar situations, or do you think that this is just specific to Japan?
I think this is a general situation, not only in Japan, but also in other societies. So as I said, we conducted surveys in Japan, Korea, and Taiwan, and we see some low response rates in the three societies.
Yes, yes. So, Dr. Sato, we've talked a bit about your history in sociology, a bit about the challenges that you faced. I also know that you have a long history working with the ISA as well.
Yes.
If you could just tell us a little bit about your involvement with the ISA.
I became an executive committee member, I think 5 years ago, when the World Congress was held in Durban, South Africa. Since then, I'm involved in ISA, and I really enjoy working with my colleagues. I mean, the executive committee members of the ISA who came from the world, not only from Asia, not only from North America, so they came from all over the world. So I really enjoyed such the heterogeneity or diversity in the board executive committee. And I also enjoyed, what should I say, working with junior sociologists worldwide. So I organized a PhD lab, I think 3 years ago in Yokohama, Japan, and I had a good time discussing with junior sociologists worldwide. And recently I went to South Africa, where Tina, the vice president, organized a PhD lab there. I also enjoyed a nice, beautiful natural environment there, and discussing excellent young sociologists.
So, and Dr. Sato, we've talked a bit about, kind of efforts to bridge national boundaries and to connect with sociologists in different parts of the world. Do you feel any kind of, or do you make efforts to also connect with sociologists across the divide between quantitative and qualitative sociology? Is that something that, in your own work, do you kind of try and push beyond those boundaries or engage with other sociologists who have different methodological approaches?
Well, sure, I'm very flexible about that. Or I would say we need a good link between quantitative and qualitative sociology. So in the beginning of this interview, I talked about spatial correlation between the crime rate and the poverty or wealth. And I found the discrepancy between the previous theories on crime and poverty because, as I said, I was born in a relatively poor area in metropolitan Tokyo. But when I was a kid, I didn't find any serious crime there. So this is a kind of participatory observation in my area, in a sense, even though I was just a kid, amateur sociologist. So this kind of qualitative observation of my city, my hometown, was linked do my statistical analysis of metropolitan Tokyo. So some sociologists are fighting each other. Some people are in the quantitative analysis camp, and some people are in the qualitative analysis camp. So they don't understand each other. But I would say this kind of not the integration, but making a nice link between the two camps would advance our understanding of society as sociologists.
So, Dr. Sato, there's one last question that I'd like to pose for you. If you hadn't decided to pursue sociology, is there something else that you would have been interested in pursuing?
Oh, yes. I'm a big fan of jazz, so I wanted to become a jazz guitarist, traveling worldwide.
I'm sorry, you wanted to become a jazz
sociologist. Oh, I'm not a jazz sociologist, jazz guitarist.
Okay.
I wanted to play guitar in jazz clubs worldwide.
Wow. And do you play the guitar?
A little bit.
Okay. So maybe that's still possible. Well, Dr. Sato, it's been a real pleasure having you here with us today. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed talking to you.
This has been another journey through sociology with Dr. Yoshimichi Sato. We look forward to next time when Professor Jennifer Platt will be joining us from England.